Hi everyone, number one Marmaduke fan here. We're continuing to look at Glenn Keane's book series, Adam Raccoon. This one is The Circus Master. I have poured incredible praise on all of these books. These are all the works of a master of his craft, pouring love into his craft to tell simple stories for children. What I've said in each of these is that these have a Christian subtext, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the Christian subtext in the story, but I really want to focus on the art of Glenn Keane and how he's using his tools and his skills to craft a story. The Circus Master is most clearly based on the story of the prodigal son. And unlike some of the other parables and ideas that Keane is pulling from, I think the story of the prodigal son is probably the one that most people outside of a Christian culture are most likely to have heard of. Everyone does a bit on the prodigal son. It's entered into our language. So this is kind of interesting as an adaptation, and Glenn Keane does some really fascinating things in this book to adapt the story of the prodigal son for young readers. So I'm going to skip a establishing shot of the house. I'm going to skip a few pages to avoid getting a copyright strike as we review this book. So I'm skipping the establishing shot of King Aaron's home. And like I've said before, it's hard to skip any page in these books because every page Glenn Keane is pouring his love into it and showing us his love for his craft. So even just looking at the comparison between these two pages, Keane, I think, is doing the watercolor as well as the underdrawings in this. This one is painted with watercolor in a little bit more of a patchwork style, where you might come in on 2 or 3 layers and, patch down your brush like that, like so, with little dabs to imply the texture of fur. This one, however, is shaded more with the charcoal drawing. So this is applying shading in the drawing stage. This is applying color and texture in the final stage. And it just creates a different effect. You can really strongly see the underdrawing in this one. You can see where King Aaron's nose was fudged a bit. You can see different versions of the jawline. It was a little bit more smooth, and then Glenn tucked it up a little bit. And the hair was worked out loosely, and then a dark line was drawn on top of that once he'd figured out the shape of the hair and was confident in his final line. If this is vine charcoal, which isn't a very greasy medium, you could even dust away your underlayer with a paper towel so that there's only just a ghost image there, and then come on top of that with a really dark pressured line, and that's the one you keep. So the story so far is that we're just showing Adam Raccoon's life with King Aaron, where he has lots of good food to eat and he saves money in his piggy bank. And a train comes to Master's Wood, and up goes a circus sign. And Adam Raccoon is intrigued by the circus. He really wants to go. So once again, thought bubbles are the best. Get rid of those weird little editorial boxes with characters' thoughts. Let's just have the thought clouds, which are beautiful, functional, and fit in the world of both children's books and comic books generally. So Adam is imagining himself as a circus performer. And let's look at this scene. A warm yellow light to represent the circus and what is tempting Adam Raccoon, contrasted with cool blues and greens inside the house. So there's a contrast of ideas represented by the color here. So this is really important. If you know the story of the prodigal son, one of the key things about the story of the prodigal son is that the prodigal son was insulting his father in a way that in Jesus' time, it would have been completely understandable for the father to disown his son for what he did. The prodigal son said to his father, "Father, give me my share of the inheritance." He was effectively saying to his father, "I wish you were dead, and I just want cash." And then in Jesus' story, the father, amazingly, rather than just disowning the son, gives the son his inheritance and lets the son go. So this book isn't giving us a scene where Adam confronts King Aaron or is cruel to King Aaron or is a bad son to King Aaron. This is being reinterpreted in a way that a child can understand. Carefully, so as not to wake King Aaron, he took his piggy bank and ran away to the bright lights of the circus. So what's being suggested here is that Adam's doing this without the king's knowledge or permission. And a little child can understand, breaking the piggy bank without permission, looking over your shoulder, doing something without asking because you'd get in trouble. So this has reinterpreted the themes of the prodigal son story into a new story that a 3-year-old or a 7-year-old could understand and relate to. They relate to Adam Raccoon in the story because they've snuck around and tried to do something without getting caught too. And I love how the bright lights of the circus suggest that what is tempting Adam Raccoon is the visual spectacle, the shininess of it, the coolness of the idea, and the art represents that. Bright yellow for the entire circus, cool blue for everything else. At the circus, we see human beings for the first time, even though they're sketched out very loosely. And this is the only time human beings appear in any of these books. These are foreign to the Master's wood. And we see a lion character appear, but we're going to talk more about him later. I really love what Keen does with some of the circus performers. Look at this strong man. So the two elephants are on top of the strong man. We get Adam Raccoon's strong silhouette over here, so we can still identify with our main character. He's slightly in shadow, and his legs are almost coming to a little point. He's so exaggerated, and he's a caricature of a strong man, but he is so solid. He's a big, broad shape, and his stance is wide and strong. Everything about this says the strong man, down to every little muscle and detail of the loincloth. So Adam rides on the Ferris wheel, and he sees the whole show. And now we meet this character, the Circus Master, the title of the book. If you have watched The Great Mouse Detective, you might immediately recognize the costume of Professor Ratigan from that movie. And the second I saw this, I said, oh gosh, Glenn Keane must have worked on The Great Mouse Detective. And sure enough, not only did Glenn Keane work on The Great Mouse Detective, he was one of the animators for Professor Ratigan. So he's taking something that he learned. He's directly pulling from that and putting it into his children's book. He's drawn Professor Ratigan. The Circus Master is a similar sort of big, sneaky sort of character. So he uses that here. And I took that opportunity just to read Glenn Keane's filmography on Wikipedia. Read through that filmography sometime, because you're going to see some weird little movies you've never heard of, Family Circus, Star Trek the Animated Series, and you're going to see his Disney filmography, and you're going to see an animator who's just sort of slowly going from being one of the animators to being one of the character animators for one character to being a lead animator. The Glenn Keane's story is a success story of someone working on doing excellent work over years and building and building and building to the point where he is in charge and passing on his knowledge to the younger animators. So that was fantastic. Adam Raccoon joins the circus as a juggler, and the sneaky circus master says, I'll let you join for everything in your piggy bank. And just one simple little expression and the ball bouncing away to emphasize how surprised Adam is by this. But Adam enjoys himself in the circus. Everyone wants to get his autograph. Again, this is the most we ever see of human beings in the entirety of this book. We do see some of their details here, but they're kind of cool and in the background, less intense color than Adam, who remains the center of interest and our focus for most of this. While Adam is there, we see that King Aaron hasn't forgotten about Adam. We're reminding the children what Adam has left behind before things start getting bad for Adam Raccoon. So Adam sees that he's replaced, and the circus master brings him in to see the elephants. And Adam says, do you want me to perform for these elephants? I don't want you to entertain them. I want you to clean them. The circus master laughed. Again, every word is conveying what the child needs to know to understand how cruel and evil this circus master is. His face, the words, everything works together. Adam is very sad by his circumstance, and he sleeps with the monkeys, and he has to eat their rotten banana peels. And if a child read the original story of the Prodigal Son, this would be a detail where a young child could see the rotten banana peels and remember the prodigal son had to eat what the pigs refused to eat in the Prodigal Son and make the connection themselves. So it's not like this is just an allegory that adults understand that goes over the heads of kids. I think Keane wants insightful children, precocious children, to be able to pick up on these themes and identify these themes, because that's exciting when you're young, to spot something in a book that it feels like you're smart because you figure out, hey, this is just like the Prodigal Son. This is excellent. It never talks down to the child. It tells a story to the child and gives them enough room to piece some of these things together. So Adam recognizes that he was very foolish to leave King Aaron, and decided to go back to him. Look at these eyes. They're the only white thing in this whole composition. That's a little unrealistic. What my realistic painting instructor, the Renaissance man, used to say, the whites of the eyes are almost never white because they're in shadow. They're in your eye sockets and they're almost always in shadow. But here, the whites of the eyes are being emphasized because this is a critical point for Adam, and we need that as a center of interest. Adam tries to get out, and he's stuck. So the elephants and the monkeys all help him, and they snag the keys from the Circus Master. And without a single word, we understand that this is success. They were trying to get the key. They succeeded in getting the key. The beautiful radiant light around the key and the action line tell us, yes, they got it. You don't need it to say the elephant got the key. The picture says it for you. After the monkeys let Adam out, he hops off, and once again, emphasis on Adam, his silhouette, and his face as he's thinking about something. Will King Aaron take him back? And just like in the story of the prodigal son, not only did the father take the prodigal son back, but the old father ran to greet his son and welcome him home. I can't show you the party, but as we've seen in all of Keen's other books, the party is colored differently than this. This is a little bit more muted. This is a little bit more cool, a little bit more toned down, and then the party, all the colors cranked up to the highest chroma, the highest intensity, to emphasize the power of that celebration. It's used symbolically rather than just realistically. So, once again, excellent. This is a great adaptation of the Prodigal Son story, a story that I'm sure hundreds of people have done their take on it, but Glenn Keane brings his mastery and his storytelling to this classic parable. I love it. I'm #1 Marmaduke fan. We've got one last book in this series, and then it's back to comic books. Catch you later, guys.